Now I have my ball nice and centered and basically the consistency I want it. Clean up all my excess clay. I like having something of a clean canvas to work with, so having a nice organized bat. Now last time I was on live, I did more of a vase, which of course is going to have a flat inner bottom. With a bowl, most people prefer a curved bowl so it's nice and smooth. So what I do is, instead of making a flat bottom when I press my hole, I actually pull my hand up a little bit and leave it in a curved shape. So it actually starts out with that inner bowl shape, even though it's not quite the angle that I'm going to want in the long term. Now, and you can kind of see it in here, my hand slopes in. There's not actually any flat bottom there. I'm going to take my sponge here, and normally, like I said last time, you want to flatten the bottom and compress the clay itself to keep it from cracking. What I like to do is I go in, and since it's not flat, I take and I smooth down and into that curve just to smooth out any rough edges. Also, it compresses the clay as I go. I like to do it at least 3 times. Make sure I got all of it. And then I start throwing or pulling the clay right up. Now, there's kind of a two-sided argument when it comes to how to throw bowls. Some people say go ahead and throw the shape of the bowl you want, and then others say to make more of a cylinder and then flare it out. I was taught both ways, both by wonderfully technically savvy potters, but I found each method has a little bit of pro and con for both. So what I do is actually a hybrid. You'll see on the outside mine flares out a little bit, but nowhere near as flared as it will be when it's just a bowl. But it's not exactly a plain cylinder either. So it's somewhat bowl-like, which allows me to give a little bit of structure and strength to the bottom so that it knows, kind of where the clay needs to be sitting, and I can get more of an idea. But the cylinder aspect is nice because you have to make sure you bring up enough clay, because you want your walls kind of thick when you're doing the cylinders, because as you flare it out, it actually thins out the walls. So what I do is I go in, and to make sure that my walls are thick enough, I actually throw it quite a bit thicker than I intend the walls themselves to be in the end. Up here at the top, you'll see it's pretty thick little rim for a bowl. I'm just smoothing out the inside again. But I've got it to about the height I want. I might go in, I'll feel down here at the bottom, see if there's any excess clay at the bottom that I want to pull one more time. There's a little bit. And here's the other reason I don't flare it out too much, because you see this wobble? That happens, unfortunately. It means I didn't get it centered perfectly. But if I had it completely flared out, that would be kind of catastrophic, or could be. So by me doing kind of a hybrid, I get a little bit of both worlds. Now, I take this little tool, which is my rubber rib, I'm going to go out here, smooth off the outside, because for the most part, I'm done touching the outside of my pot. I'll try and get it at an angle so you can kind of see me doing it. It's just kind of a squeegee technique, getting all this extra goop, you can see it, off the outside. And then, here's the other reason I don't like flaring it out all the way to begin with. Down here at the bottom, I still have a little bit of a flare out where it actually attached to the wheel. Well, I want to get rid of that. And if my bowl were completely flared, I would kind of have some difficulty. So what I'm going to do is go in, cut off the excess with my cutting tool. Now, you'll notice I leave a thick foot, and I'll show you why in just a little while. But there's my foot, has been trimmed. My outside should be relatively smooth now because I went out with my rubber rib and just cut off any excess that I didn't like the looks of. Now I take it on the inside, and I start from the very bottom. And I take, it's rounded on this side, unlike my some of the others. This is actually really nice. I also have one, this is another rubber rib. I might actually use it for this demo. This is actually called a bowl shape rubber rib for making bowls. And the reason is, you start at the bottom and just, it curves. And it gives you a little bit of everything as far as curves are concerned. So I start in the very bottom, and I smooth the inside of the bowl, and I just roll it slowly up the inside, and you'll notice the shape of my bowl is changing. Now I flared it out a little more than I wanted to at the very top, which means I'll just go back on the inside and even it out. There we go. I go back out with my rubber rib on the outside just to make sure that I have no textures or anything that were created by the stretching. The little one's a little more detailed, so I can go in and do final smoothing on the very center. And then last but not least, I have this rim, which is now thinner than it had been because I stretched the clay. And I just run my sponge across it, get any of the really rough stuff. And then I just use my fingers for the rest. Now there's some other tricks and everything you can use. One of which is you take a slice of a plastic bag and you drape it up and over. I've done that. It also works with paper sometimes. I lost my little chamois, which is a little leather piece that I used for it. But here's just a little piece of paper. Not ideal, kind of a one-time shot. But you run it across and it polishes and smooths by scooping off all that excess. And there, for the most part, is my simple larger bowl. And then I take my little tool here, undercut one more time now that I've messed around with it. And then I'm going to cut it off.